Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. We're being very abusive to ourselves today, and we are going to cover the alleged Lord of the Rings of Power Season 2 San Diego Comic-Con trailer. It's 3.5 minutes of glorious annoyance. But yeah, how you doing, Matt? Thank you for joining me for this annoyance.
I'm doing okay. I mean, other than having to look at this. Oh my God! It's a weeping angel. Don't look at it.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Weeping angel.
Yeah, but I mean, on the bright side, I'll never have to watch this trailer again.
You hope.
Oh no, I know. I will never have to watch this again. I might have to watch a different one, but not this one.
You know, if they made people in prison watch this trailer, they would probably just go crazy or go straight.
Yeah, they'd either become good citizens, law-abiding citizens, or they would off themselves. One of the two.
Yeah.
Probably off themselves more often than not. Anyway. Ta-da! Okay, so I apologize to my viewers because this is going to emotionally damage you like it's going to emotionally damage me. So might as well just jump into it, get it over with.
Our regular other players, Otis and Sage, have been barred by the EU from participating in this trailer review.
Well, not that they've been barred; they just chickened out. All right, here we go.
Sauron sees himself as master of all Middle-earth.
Those rings are atrocious.
Well, also, I need to point this out, okay, without revisiting all the stuff from last season. Okay? At this point in what they depicted, right? Just to put the lore in context, okay? When Sauron leaves Celebrimbor, for gain effect, Galadriel had nothing to do with the forging of the rings, in terms of the actual forging, right? The 3, the 7, and the 9 should already have been forged. Not the 3, the 7 and the 9. The 3 don't get forged until after Sauron leaves. Okay? Just for the people listening to that, keep that in mind. Okay? When you watch this whole trailer.
They are all made before the 1 is.
Well, no. He forges the 3 while Sauron is forging the 1. It takes Sauron 10 years to make the 1 ring.
Which is amazing to me because it doesn't take that long to make a ring, but yeah.
It's not just making a ring, it's the power,
Investing himself in it, yeah.
And taking power from Mount Doom.
But my best friend's a jeweler, and I showed him during season 1, I showed him images of him, and he's like, what the heck is that? And I was like, I know, right? Like, I'm not even a jeweler, and I could tell that looks hideous. And they were like uncut and everything. And I'm like, a real jeweler would have gone in there and been making that thing look beautiful, not just slamming a rock on it and saying, hey, it's finished. And they do look like they're freaking, like, if you go to those, what are they called? When you go to like the arcades, the little gotcha machines where you put the quarter in, you twist the thing, and a little ball pops out, and you have like a little plastic ring.
Yeah.
As a kid. That's what they look like. But this crown, I was trying to figure out what this crown was, because we'll see at some point in the trailer, Adar slams it on someone's head, but I don't know whose head. It could be Sauron's, Charlie Vickers' head. At some point, probably by the end, I would imagine that'd be the end of the season if he does that way. But Adar was going to allegedly, quote unquote, take care of Sauron. So I don't know if he's enemies with Sauron and they're trying to make you think that they're enemies and then they act against each other or something. But I get the feeling most of the season's going to be Sauron intermingling with the elves as Anatar without being Anatar. And Adar is just building up his forces in Mordor. But the end of season 1, we had Sauron going to Mordor, so who knows how that's going to work. But
they dropped a line in one of these trailers with he was always there or something like that, which leads me to think that the Anatar bit is going to be retconned in as he was there for hundreds of years type of thing.
Maybe, but I'm trying to figure out because they're trying to give the classical Sauron helmet look with this kind of with
Yeah.
the 3 spikes sticking up. When I could say like the Iron Crown, I'm like, but if it was the Iron Crown, it would go to the Witch King. So I don't know if they're trying to make the Witch King in this time period too, because the Witch King does not actually become.
Well, they have to, because they're putting the rats in here. The
rats.
Why did my brain just die? The Barrow Whites.
Oh, the whites, yeah. Well, yeah. If the Barrow Whites exist, they have to have the Witch King.
Yeah,
the Witch King makes the Barrow Whites. So they
and
could
the Witch King of Angmar doesn't exist until Angmar exists like 1,000 years later. Well,
yeah,
thousands of years later, after when Sauron actually forward.
Well, and that was the weird thing, is because Kamul, I think, is expected to be in this time period, maybe, or maybe I'm just remembering, because I know there was I think it's the Jolly Viking did a series where he like re-scripted everything to make it work with what they had, but even then it was still kind of butchered. But he like made it actually seem like a decent script, like even if it's not lore accurate, it was still like a decent script, and he put it together. It was better drama, better interaction between characters. They were more developed and all that stuff. But he did a series, and he had Kamul, like the stranger, basically chasing down Kamul. Or not, it wasn't the stranger, because he swapped out the stranger for Glorfindel. So Glorfindel became friends with whatever her face is, the Harfoot. And he's like chasing down Kamul. And I was like, wouldn't Kamul not be born yet? Because Kamul wasn't the first ring wraith, and as far as I'm aware, the Witch King hasn't even come around yet. So why would Kamul be here?
Well, the 9 rings haven't been forged yet. The ring wraiths are men, so
it wasn't Kamul as a ring wraith. It was Kamul as a Easterling lord kind of thing with magic. So I was just like, I don't know how they think they're going to do that, because Kamul being Easterling, I mean, he's man, and if he's man, he doesn't live for 1,000 years, so that wouldn't make sense. But I think this is supposed to be like the Iron Crown kind of a thing. But you think that the Witch King being hinted at would be a bit of a bigger draw, and since Witch King is one of my favorite characters, it makes it a little weird. But needless to say, Ring's bad.
So I'm trying to remember the timeline here. So the ring wraiths show up. So Sauron forges the One Ring between 1590 and 1600 of the Second Age. He gets a hold of the 9 and the 7 in the War of the Elves and Sauron, which happens in the year 1600, basically, when he finds out, well, he wants to conquer Eregion and Eriador, but also he finds out that Celebrimbor had made the 3 without him, right? Okay. So then he gets...
How does the 3 get made without him and without his influence at all?
No.
It's commanded by the ring.
Okay, so here's the story for everyone listening. I'll keep it 5 minutes or less. So Sauron, and this is stuff from Appendices, Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, and History of Middle-earth. Okay, I'm not going to say which is where I'm going to give it in one shot. So at the end of the First Age, Sauron is brought before Eonwy, the Herald of Manwë, who seems like the leader of the host that came back, from what we can tell. And he says to him, look, okay, I'm paraphrasing, Tolkien didn't use these words. You've basically been a cosmic douche for the past several thousand years or whatever. But, Melkor's gone, and as long as you return to the Undying Lands and face the judgment of Manwë, you can be forgiven. And Sauron was briefly repentant. He actually thought about returning, because his issue was order, not evil, per se. But he became afraid of Manwë's wrath, and in that brief time period, what Melkor had corrupted and took hold of him again. So Sauron went into hiding for about 500 years. Okay, and during that 500-year period, his actions aren't depicted, but he was building up forces and powers. Right. So Galadriel and Celeborn, who led the survivors of the Sindarin elves after the third kinslaying and all the First Age, whatever, they took them into what is going to be called Eregion in the future. And there were a lot of political powers there. There were the elves, the Sylvan elves, the remnants of the Sindarin elves, the pre-Numenorian, the men who the remnants of the faithful, like the faithful all went to Numenor, right? But their kindred stayed there in that region, okay? And the dwarves and all that were in that area, right? And Galadriel, with her vast powers, sensed some evil building, but she didn't know what it was, okay? So she formulated a region and built the city Ostinedhill to be the center of power, to project power there, and formed alliances because the Noldor elves were friendly with the dwarves, even though Celeborn hated them. They were friendly with the humans. She bound them all together with our influence, right? And so that Ostinedhill is formed. Galadriel and Celeborn organize it and all that, and a region is formed as a defense against potential evil coming. So fast forward to Sauron reemerging after 500, a second age, and then you get to where Mordor gets established. He begins to establish Mordor. Mordor gets established in 1000 SA, right? So then fast forward to which made sense because that was what Galadriel was building a region against, was him building up Mordor for hundreds of years in secret. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and it's important to remember that Galadriel, she is the most powerful, like non-Ainur, non-Valar, non-Maiar telepath there is, right? She has almost the same level of telepathic ability that essentially, since the Ainur are basically angels, to use a modern reference, in Christianity, angels can read people like an open book, you know. So, and if you're an example in Lord of the Rings, when Frodo wakes up in Rivendell, Gandalf says, "Oh, I just read your mind for everything." That's how we figure out what's going on. So Galadriel is sensing all this sort of stuff, right? So Sauron, a couple hundred years later, he knows he has to corrupt the elves. He has to, because this alliance is against his interest. Alliance in the region. Yeah. So he assumes a fair and pleasing form, that of Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, and starts going to the elves and saying, "Look, Valar have sent me. You've all been forgiven. They sent me to give all this knowledge and wisdom to you guys." You know, and I'm telling this slightly out of order because it happened in different order in different versions. Yeah. He goes to Galadriel, and Galadriel, she can't penetrate his mind and sense that he is Sauron, but she knows he is bad news, and she says, "Nah, we don't want nothing to do with you. Get out."
Be gone with you, foul demon.
Yeah. So he leaves Eregion and goes to visit Gil-galad and Elrond, who are in the Elven Kingdom. They're escaping me right now. And they can sense that he's not trustworthy, but they can't sense that he is bad news like Galadriel did. So they're like, "Nah, we don't want nothing to do with you. We appreciate the offer, but just get out of my kingdom." So next he goes to Ostinedhill, what Celebrimbor is, and Celebrimbor is a grandson of Fëanor. He's closely tied to the curse of Fëanor, the oath, and the greediness of Fëanor is in his blood. And she says, "I could teach you all this stuff." And this because Sauron was a Maiar of Ule, the smith. Ule was my master. I can teach you all this cool stuff. So he teaches a whole bunch of forging lore, including the ring lore. That's over hundreds of years. Okay. And they start forging the rings, I want to say about 100 years before. I want to say like the year 1490-ish of the Second Age is when the ring forging process starts. And no way is not a simple act of to make the metal part. It's a sort of spiritual act of taking the forces of the unseen world, the powers of the angels, and putting them into an imbued form that anyone who uses the ring could do. Okay. So during that time, he sort of partially corrupts Celebrimbor and turns him against Galadriel. And Celebrimbor has his smiths, the something in Wraith, and he has effective control of Ostinedhill, the city, so he kicks Galadriel and Celeborn out. And Galadriel and Celeborn start fleeing, right? And because Celeborn hates the dwarves, he won't go through Moria to safety with Galadriel and Celebrian. So he goes into hiding among the rebels or whatever. And so Galadriel and Celeborn are separated for a couple hundred years because of that, right? Meanwhile, Celebrimbor forges the 9 and the 3, right? Sauron, thinking his plan has come to fruition because he doesn't really think he can control the elves. He thinks he could just kill them, So, yeah. But the dwarves and the men, he thinks with the ring,
immortal.
So now, but Celeborn has begun to wisen up. He's like, something's off about this, but he's not quite there yet. So when Sauron leaves to go forge the One Ring in 1590, right, Celeborn is sort of freed from his local influences, like, something was off with that guy. and he decides to make the 3 rings, 3 elven rings, which are more powerful than the others. Okay, and unlike the others, which had more warlike potential, the 3 elven rings are designed to be preservative. Okay,
Yeah.
and enhancing. So he forges the 3, and Sauron forges the 1. And Celebrimbor puts on one of the 3, and he gives 2 to his fellow smith. And the instant, remember, he had no direct hand in forging it, but the lore was based on his. So they're linked to the 1 ring. So as soon as Sauron puts on the 1 ring, he senses the 3 and is enraged that Celeborn made them, right? But because he had never had a direct hand in it, not Celebrimbor, he and the 2 smiths, they're able to remove the ring before Sauron could engage them in a contest of minds and try to dominate their will. Okay, yeah. So immediately Celebrimbor was like, "Oh crap, that's Sauron." He the jig's up. He goes to Galadriel and she says, "I have these 3 rings. Explains what they can do." And he goes, "Well, you need to hide them away from Sauron because he can use those rings to control even the powerful of us. If he puts them on, if you want to capture someone and put the ring on them, right? So you have to hide them away." So he gives 1 to Galadriel, and he sends 2 to Gil-galad, and he's the only one who knows where those rings went, right? Yeah. And then Gil-galad sends 1 of the rings to Círdan the shipwright. Those are your 3 most powerful elves in Middle Earth at the time. Okay.
Yep.
And if anyone could prevent Sauron from getting the rings, not they would use them as long as Sauron was the one, but they could keep them away. Sauron enraged starts the war of the elves and Sauron. Eventually captures Celebrimbor, tortures him for years. He never gives up the location of the 3, but Sauron does capture the 9 and the 7, and that's kind of where we're at with the situation. And that's how you can forge the 3 without Sauron.
I'm just surprised that they didn't try to break the magical connection to Sauron through the method, because the method would be partially through Sauron, but if Sauron's not there adding or imbuing himself in it, he shouldn't have any direct ability to do anything to them.
Well, okay, so the rings don't work without the ring lore that Sauron taught them.
Well, yes, but I'm saying the ring lore itself is not inherently Sauron's. It's just a ring lore.
Well, that ring lore is inherently his. There are other, if you follow the text, there are other rings of power that are forged with other means, but none of them were as powerful as what these rings of power were.
Huh. Yeah, it's been a hot minute since I've read them, but
Tolkien never drops into great detail about other rings of power that were forged by the elves over the centuries, thousands of years. But there are other forgeries, but this one was taught with the lore that was taught by Sauron, which you could infer that either he put his own gimmicks into that they couldn't detect, or it's not so much his power, but it's like when you write computer coding, and this is the analogy I use anyway. You write computer coding and you're a hacker and you put your little backdoor in there, that no one knows. It's like 17 lines of code in the 10 million lines of code that you use. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
And they don't, and because you're an award-winning programmer, no one ever looks for that 17 lines of code in some rare subfile somewhere that you could gateway into,
Yeah. Well, I was saying more like elves live forever, and they could always be like, okay, here's the lore that we learned. Even after they made the 3, they could have been like, oh shoot, that's Sauron, and he starts working on using the ring lore, but tweaking it and turning it into something else. So instead of using the
he died.
Back way in.
Huh? All the Celebrimbor and all the Smiths were killed. They're the only
I know, but I mean, I would probably have built up some super defenses and had some allies come and help.
There was no defense against what came for them.
And and that's part they should have had a path to flee or something. But
they did. That's what Rivendell formed.
I'm not assuming, or I should say, I'm assuming that Celebrimbor and all of his smiths weren't the only smiths of the entire of Elvendom.
You need to remember at this time, the Noldor had been steadily returning to Valinor, to the Undying Lands. Every year that passed, there were less and less of them in Middle Earth, and the most of the Noldor elves did not live in Osnedel. The elves of Osnedel were mostly Sindarin elves, who had never seen the light of the Undying Lands, and basically, Celebrimbor, the reason he could kick Galadriel is because Celebrimbor and Smith basically were the dominant power of us in Edo.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And there weren't a lot of them. So,
yeah. I just figured at some point one of the other elves, like Galadriel or Gil-galad, would be like, you know, I have a smith. We know a little, like when Celebrimbor shows up and says, "Here's these rings," be like, get a little bit of information on what to do. Tell the smiths, get some information through that you need to, and then even if Celebrimbor and his group is wiped out, the other smiths can be like, you know, we can work on this. We've got time on our hands, so
well,
we
they
can
didn't though. Like once the one was revealed, there was perpetual war for like the next couple thousand years.
Well, yeah, there's a perpetual war, but it doesn't mean that the guy, like every single smith, like you couldn't have 5 smiths off to the side being like, you know, what happens if we do this? Because it could benefit the elf.
Okay,
kingdom.
so you also you need to factor the whole of the war into this. That the smiths who would have been most inclined to do this, and they're also the most corruptible, right? That were the ones in Feanor's faction of the Noldor, okay, which would have been Celebrimbor. And the other 2 factions of the Noldor, Fingolfin and Galadriel's, were not inclined to this power trip that the Fëanorians, that's not the name of them.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about a power trip. I'm talking about like making basically the 3 again, but without the magical link to Sauron.
Well, he would have to figure it out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like they have time because they're elves. They live.
Well, they didn't have time because they died.
Every single elf.
All the Smiths original. All the ones he had taught were killed.
Well, I know, but I'm saying he could have had 1 or 2 of them stay with Galadriel, etc. When he gave him the rings and said,
"Well, no, they hated him."
When he gave him the rings,
Celebrimbor wised up, right, and he gave Har the ring. But for the most part, the Smiths of Eregion, you got to remember, Galadriel was in opposition to them from the beginning.
I know, but what I'm saying is that if Celebrimbor wises up, he goes to the other Smiths and says, you know, we've been bamboozled.
Well, he didn't really do that, though.
I'm saying this is what an intelligent elf would do. You go to the Smiths, you say, hey, we've been bamboozled, whatever. We got to get these rings out of here because Sauron's going to probably show up. Sauron's big bad news. So they go over and he's like, here, I got these couple Smiths. They're going to stay with you guys and help you out just in case something happens to us, the rest of us. You know, you can find a way to either break the link on these 3 that are already made, or they can make new ones without that influence factor included. And they can find an alternative solution. And then that way you at least have your bases covered. Now, obviously, that's not how it happened. But
well, had you not had several thousand years of perpetual war, they might have time to develop an independent ring war that can make rings of that power.
The war does not mean every child in the kingdom is fighting the war. There are always people in the background that are not doing the war.
And as the war is fighting, elves are just leaving and saying, I'm going back to Valinor.
Yeah. But my point is that if there are people still there, because elves care about elf kind. This is pretty much a given.
Well, no, they don't actually. The Kinslayers that. It's like,
well, I'm saying like,
and the Sindarin and Silvanels did not like each other or the Noldor.
Well, that's fine, but the Sindarins care about the Sindarins, and the Noldor care about the Noldor. Why would they fight in armies that are going to get them killed if they didn't care about them? Like,
what the hell is that?
I heard that.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, it sounded like Super Smash Bros.
Well, I pay attention to everything because of that fire that happened a few weeks ago. You know. Okay, there's no more screaming. So it's probably just someone slipping on the rail or whatever. You know.
Somebody just fell to their death. No big deal.
No big deal. Yeah. Okay. So again,
so I don't like the 9 didn't get their stuff for much later, and the Witch King didn't come for at least a couple thousand years afterwards. He didn't rise to power in Angmar.
Well, okay, the ring rates show up about six or 7 years after the One Ring is forged.
Okay. Well, was the Witch King technically the first one, or was he just the?
I don't think there's a specific order on them. The Witch King was the commander of the 9, and Kamul was
I know he was the leader, but I didn't know because I don't think he gave them to all 9 at equal times.
No, well,
I think
again, you kind of read into multiple versions of things, but the 9 had become gradually active, like one by one, over the course of this couple hundred years, right?
Mm.
But they became known as the 9 ring wraiths when they were all there, and I want to say 23 or 2400 of the Second Age, you know, and and then the Witch King himself. He only became known as the Witch King of Angmar when after he conquered Angmar in like the Third Age, right?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? There's, and again, this also needs to be understood. The Second Age of Middle Earth, there's a lot there, but there's also a lot Tolkien wished he had worked more on in terms of filling.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I love about the professor was that he could fill out a story. He could make it a good story, and everything would just be fantastic because of it. But yeah, I do wish there was a bit more to it, but unfortunately, we got what we got. Yeah. But we can continue on. I wanted to point out this crown.
On the crown, and the whole thing
would
have
have the Witch Kings, or it's Sauron supposed to be like the first edition of his helmet.
Well, Sauron should be able to make it by just hand waving.
Yeah, but this is something Adar made, and they're utilizing Adar, who is nobody from the.
Why I think you're right, and they're going to lead this into the Witch King and the Barrow-wights.
Well, the Iron Crown is.
Yeah.
Did you ever play the Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle Earth games?
How long? The last time I played a Lord of the Rings game was probably over 10 years ago.
It had been over like 2003-ish time period.
Then I probably did play it, yeah.
After the movies. But in Battle for Middle Earth 2, they had an expansion, Battle 2 Rise of the Witch King. And in Rise of the Witch King, they had it was more focused on Angmar being a faction.
Yeah.
In that faction, you got the Hill Trolls, the Snow Trolls.
Yeah.
You got the Black Numenorians. You had Morgamir.
Who aren't actually black people, by the way, for people listening.
I can't believe I actually have to explain that to people when I talk to them. Like, yeah, the Black Numenorians, they're not actually black. They're just evil. They're like, wait, you're calling black people evil? It's like, no, I literally said they're not black. They're just evil, which means they're not black people, and black people are evil in this setting. In this,
they're black. They are black-souled characters, not black people souled, but black as an evil.
Are you claiming
the original word? The original
interracial.
Yeah. The original moral connotation of black before racists took it.
I was gonna say, can you be spiritually interracial? Like I'm white on the outside but black on the inside.
Yeah. But you know what else this crown reminds me of? War of the Warcraft, the Lich King.
A little bit. I thought his was less though. He had a little different. He had like the really.
My brain just looks for anything they possibly could be ripping off every time I see this now.
I mean, personally, that looks more like a dwarven, design, but sharpened instead of blocked.
Well,
because like
keep going here.
Little jags and stuff, yeah.
To rule it not only through conquest.
There's that. Durin, is that Durin the second?
Durin the third.
This is Durin the third. Yeah.
But by bending the mind.
I thought he was a decent actor in the first one.
I think most of the actors are bad actors.
This is the guy who replaced the first season Adar because the first season Adar actor is like, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm done with this crap.
I mean, honestly, the orcs don't look bad. Like, not too bad anyway. I think some of them, their teeth are too symmetrical. Like this guy here in the bottom corner. His teeth, they just has these little fangs. I'm like, I feel like orcs have a mixture of broken teeth, out of place teeth. They're disfigured. They're not going to have like perfection or anything. But aside from that, they just have a bunch of bald ones. And I'm like, orcs can have hair.
Well, orcs were made to be corrupted, as in the mockery of elves from elves. So if your orcs in Tolkien look like they should be a corrupt mockery of elves, which these do, look like the pointed features of the elves you can see on the orcs. They have the pointy ears that the TV elves have. The feature set looks like you could see that the makeup artist went to good effort with that. I was like,
finally, after a whole season.
But that's the thing about this show. The background, the makeup, the music, there's real effort there. You know what I mean?
Typically, sometimes. There's some areas that not so much, but that ring just that's hideous. I cannot go to any further lengths. That's literally the laziest type thing either, because the actual ring part of it that slides on your finger is literally just a bunch of pieces of metal that were like stripped out and then twined together. That's literally all it is. It's not flowers. It's not like anything special. It has no elvish like inspiration or anything. It's literally just twined metal, and it just I don't know why that they thought this would look good. And that ring, like where the actual rock sits in, like that big flat plane, makes it look like a flat Earth model, and it looks stupid. And that's the tree, which is allegedly still dying from the black goo. And then this is where Gil-galad is talking to Galadriel, and she has to fess up.
And for that he needs not armies.
No! And there's Elrond.
But rings.
So
this is the other thing, is like she knows what's going on and she continues on with it anyway.
If the One Ring is forged and Sauron is wearing it, that is mental suicide, what she just did.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like her being like, oh, he left, but now let's make these ones. And like they make them, like we'll make them anyway, despite knowing that, you know, he's been interfering with this. And then I don't know if they're doing like the 3 were before Anatar showed up instead of 3 after the.
Well,
the
that's
9.
why I think that
Anaconda.
Yeah. There's going to be a giant anaconda helping forge the rings.
Yeah.
Anatar he's going to show up in flashbacks as if he was always there, you know, and with the forging of the 9 and the 7, because they said they heard our complaints about no Anatar. Right, they said that in between seasons, and
it's not that was not my complaint, like ever. My complaint was that the story is trash, and it makes no
my complaint is that they made this, but that's, you know, of the.
That's the thing. If they made it and it was accurate to the lore, it was like the story was good, the acting was good, the dialogue was good. The CG could even be a little bit faulty, but if they made it look like and feel like the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, but in the first and second age, I wouldn't mind that. Like, I'm not against having more Lord of the Rings or Tolkienian Legendarium content. I'm not against it. I know a lot of people are, but I'm not against it. I just want it good. If it's good, like War of the Rohirrim had a chance, a sliver of a chance, a fool's hope, if you will, to be the most phenomenal Tolkien thing we've gotten since the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But they decided to blow that one out of the water and say, you know what? We're going to swerve with a bait and switch on you so flipping hard, you're just going to have regrets for the rest of your life. And that's kind of what happened. So I took it personally. What you were saying?
No, I was just talking about the Order of the Forging and with Anatar and, you know, Anatar-Akanda and all that. You know.
Yeah.
In choosing to.
So I heard people making fun of him, like, he made 4 rings. I'm like, no, he just has a whole bunch of rings. They all have the main ring on the middle finger.
Yeah.
So,
which this scene never happened in any of the books, ever.
Yeah. Nope. No, it didn't. Well, none of these scenes happen in the books. What are you talking about?
Is that even?
Huh?
Like the ring should be going to Galadriel, Gil-galad, and Gil-galad sends the other one to Círdan. Is that Círdan?
The red one is presumably Círdan, because the red one's the one that is it Bahir?
Ring of Fire. I don't remember. Nenya, Narya, and Vilya. I don't remember.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think it's Vilya is Círdan, so that's the one he ends up getting.
Yeah, Vilya should be the Ring of Fire. Nenya, the Ring of
Narya's Galadriel's, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Galadriel's air, Elrond has water, which means Gil-galad had water, and Gandalf had fire.
Yeah.
Círdan had fire.
You have all become his collaborators.
She's been his collaborator.
She was
He found this out at the end of season 1. That's the funny part.
So is that what they call it? They were collaborating.
It was collaborating. Or the better part were like, let's ship Galadriel and Sauron while they're on a ship.
I know you believe this ring is deceiving me.
Because it is.
But I believe
That doesn't matter.
it is guiding me.
And somebody had made a comment that they heard our complaints about her being in full plate armor. So like we're just gonna make her a superior archer, Legolas 2.0.
But see, that's the thing. I keep pointing this out to people. The problem with Galadriel fighting with a sword and armor is not that she's wearing a sword and armor. She was renowned as an athlete for Noldor in general, and she probably would have learned to fight in sword and armor. But the thing is, she was so powerful she didn't need to. She looked at you and blew you up. Okay, that's how it works.
They see it said she was an athlete and she did all this cool stuff, but she blew everybody away. So of course she's the greatest ever. And it's like, that doesn't mean she goes on the battlefield. But going on the battlefield means you have a chance of dying.
But she's why
would she go on the battlefield?
She probably wasn't on the battlefield, but on the battlefield she was looking at people and blowing them up. I guarantee you, because there's a description of how Galadriel fights in the appendices. Okay,
I mean, the way they describe her from the show and all the fake fans and all that jazz, they make it sound like she could just nuke everybody anywhere, anytime. I'm like, if she could have done this when Melkor was around and she didn't, why didn't she? They make her sound like she could 1v1 Melkor.
She can't. She can't even 1v1 Sauron.
Exactly. So, like, why would she be putting all this effort when they have professional soldiers to do it for her? And if she wanted
there's no level of professional soldier that could fight Sauron. I mean, you have to
go back to like battlefield wise, like when you have the orcs coming down, you have the elves coming down, and at one point, even like what was the battle of something tiers?
The battle of on something tiers. Oh.
The one where the dwarf king falls, and they withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember which one. What's the name of it is? It's been so long since I read that part of the Silmarillion. But they withdraw and everything. But like it was a bloodbath, and I believe it was Gondolin.
The fall of Gondolin.
No, that's the fall of Gondolin. The soldiers from Gondolin. There's 10,000 soldiers showed up at that fight, and that's what saved the elves from getting completely wiped out.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, like. She could have saved them if she could nuke people for like just like, oh, there's just a bunch of orcs, just and blow them up. Well, then sure, but she doesn't. She's not mentioned at any of the major battlefields. She's just numbered amongst the high-ranking elves.
In the first age. Remember, the Noldor considered her an enemy because of the kinslayings and all that, and she was basically hiding in the Girdle of Melion with the Sindarin elves. So I always forget the name of that city.
I always forget the name too.
Yeah, and she actually fled with them as they kept retreating from the Noldor attacking them. You know.
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing is like she's never in this glorious campaign where she gloriously goes out and gloriously nukes everything. Like she's there, she's a figurehead, but she's also a powerful figurehead, and she commands a lot of respect from those who
she becomes after the bulk of the Noldor who don't like her are gone at the end of the first age. It's the second age when she becomes active with her power, and then like she, as Tolkien puts it, unless Sauron himself went to Lothlorien, she was capable of defeating anyone else who attacked it on her own, but he would be able to kill her if he went there. And then after, when Celeborn basically leaves the Sindarin elves and conquers Dol Guldur, she goes up to it and kind of looks at it and just rips it apart with her mind. Like there's no.
Yeah. Well, she wanted to crack it open like an egg, so it could be used as a strategic
by the root, basically by the root. So it was gone by the root.
Well, yeah, it was the concept of let me remove this obstacle because it's going to be a pain if it stays here, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. And it's like that makes sense. But
that to me is the real offensive thing to do with Galadriel in this first season was like, I didn't mind her carrying a sword around or whatever, because what, someone gets up close to you, whatever. But
Well, imagine
they
if they
weren't
pulled her.
depicting her as a power; they were depicting her as Xena.
What happened if they just like kept her in the back as the Lady Galadriel? She's doing all the magic stuff and all that things. But then like season 3 comes around because like season 2 they establish Mordor or whatever. I'm trying to kind of keep to what they're doing, but like fixing Galadriel a little bit. Like so that Adar takes the orcs. They build these massive stronghold, not Barad-dûr, but like something like Barad-dûr, like a mass stronghold. And then through that, they go to war, and she gets the armies. She goes there and just cracks the fort open and just demolishes it.
That would have been fine too. Like
that's what I'm saying is like that would be a good representation of her being powerful without her looking like a goofball on the field in a full plate of armor when she doesn't need to. That's my point.
Yeah.
And again, some of that looks a little too humanish, but whatever. The teeth just look too organized. The guy on the left, not so bad. The one in the middle.
Maybe he has a good orcish dentist.
Up there with the orcish barbers that do the same barber shops as the elves.
All this may be by his design. These rings may be how
people made really funny things about this because that would be allegedly Círdan. But like this little fish is like floating around the finger, and like, do you know how hard it is to train a fish? And I was like, that's pretty hard. So it's CGI.
he attains power. They must be destroyed.
And this is where they kind of put all of the they put Durin the Third, Gil-galad, allegedly Círdan, and that's assuming Círdan's even in this. It could be Elrond's the one who gets the third, and Galadriel. They're like, oh, they must be destroyed. They're like, but we can't destroy them. We have the power, and it's just they make Gil-galad look stupid, and I hate when they do that.
We will discuss the rings once you have answered the question.
Answer the question. What is your favorite color?
Well, I mean, the reason they didn't destroy the rings is because they had the greed for power on them. That was an older curse, you know?
Yeah, but I was just saying, I was like, once you answer the question, what is your favorite color? Blue. You may pass. Oh, all right then.
I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm still here.
Huh?
I have to turn my camera off for comments. I'm still here.
Yeah, sure.
Who is this man?
Who is this man?
What a man! What a man!
Well, not like you're local to find out, so I don't know if it matters to you or not. But this is where it gets stupid.
I'm here.
He is no man.
He is no man.
He's Bilbo Baggins. Hey, just kidding. And then they got the little, I don't know if you see this group of elves with Elrond. It's the DEI D&D group. Because they literally got like everything. They got an Asian elf. They've got obviously European elf. They've got I wouldn't be surprised if one of them was African elf or anything, but like they've got this little, probably have a Native American in there somewhere. Like they're
all conveniently genocided by the Third Age.
Yeah, kind of. But it's just I find it funny because it's like why is he making an Avengers squad? Like what's the purpose of an Avengers squad?
This is basically supposed to turn into a war movie, and instead it's turning into, like you said, an Avengers movie.
It's like elf Avengers assemble, and then they assemble, and it's like there's 5 of us, and we don't have any superpowers. We don't have hardly any magic if we do any at all. Let's go take on the entirety of the Orcish horde.
Like your one character should have vast magical powers. You didn't give them to her in the first season.
Yeah, and even if there were some ones with minors, like just equivalent of like Aes Sedai compared to Forsaken, like even if they were lower.
Imagine if Galadriel has like a DBZ power up in the middle of this. She goes like super elf Saiyan with her gold hair glows even more. She's like, Sauron, I've had enough, Sauron. You killed yourself.
Her gold hair turns white, and she goes like and said, "You have the power of a queen." Super Saiyan mode. and those are supposedly Barrow Whites. Now the question is, are these the women from the ones that attack the stranger, because they're technically Nazgul, pre-Nazgul, I guess.
Which there's no such thing, but hey,
Well, there isn't, but there's a whole lot of nothing. This whole series is a no such thing. But like, I think this will probably be my favorite part because I like Barrow Whites. I like the Witch King. I like that kind of stuff because I play characters in games like Guild Wars 2 as a
now, if
necromancer.
they were creative, right?
It's kind of cool.
If they were creative, what they could do here is, and which they can't because they ruined the story, but if they could have the 9 where Sauron's giving them to men, and the way the enchantment on 9 works is if Sauron dominates your will enough, he can hold your soul from going to the halls of Manos and into the void, right? So
he basically enslaves the spirits.
Yeah. So they could have it where he's trying to find rings that are worth keeping, the soul's worth keeping, but the elves keep killing them. You know what I mean? So that guy's not worth holding back from the void.
He's dead. Oh, that was he's dead. Just can't go through.
Well, that could have been a way to do it creatively, so you're having different actors play Nazgul at various points,
Like at this point, the spooky factor would be the only thing I could really see in his favor. Like using wraiths, whether it be Barrow Whites or wraiths or anything pre-Nazgul, because the Nazgul are very distinct and special. Yeah. But like if you have anything other than that, like lower tier, that are like elf assassins or something like that, that could be an interesting part of the story. Granted, it's still not Lord of the Rings, or at least it's not Tolkien universe or Legendarium, but it would at least be more interesting if they could pull off a cool scene like that, which I'm assuming they're trying to connect Elrond and his little posse of Avengers being surrounded by these guys.
Now, what I guarantee this, they're going to do where Sauron gives the rings to 9 men on Numenor.
Oh, bother. Because weren't the 9 all kings?
They were kings of men, but not Numenorians.
Yeah. Well, we know Kamul was from Easterling territory.
Yeah.
Like, because this, what I'm getting the picture from this armor is that it's probably Easterling armor. But the question is it the 3 women plus some? Obviously, there's more than 3 here. Is it the 3 women and being, what's the word? Are they like able to transfer between physical manifestations like the last season and then the spiritual versions like they are this season? Are they a mixture of both? Are they completely different characters? Are they from the same faction? Is it like a temple deity kind of thing where they can do a ritual and turn people into these things that serve them and answer to them as like Barrow-wites or something that are bound to the will of whoever? Like, what are the things and how do they do what they do?
Again, if they paid attention to the lore, right? So Sauron, and we've been having this sort of discussion debate for weeks. Like Sauron invented magic to confuse the mortal races. Remember that quote? So, and Sauron is the lord of necromancers and werewolves, right? So instead of making up whoever these women were, they could be Sauron's mortals he corrupted with his magic and turned into necromancers. Follow the lore, keep it simple, stupid.
Well, you argue that they're willing, like they're people. None of them looked really Easterling level. They look like totally different areas. But if they had been Easterlings, they could have willingly joined Sauron and willingly served him, and he corrupted them even further. And then he taught them necromancy, or he taught them stuff, or converted them into whites or something. Like there's ways they could have done it where at least pull your interest from the story aspect. Like, ooh, some bad guys that are a little bit spooky. They're not normal, just men who run up and get cut down in a battle or something. Like they're spooky, they're special. They do things like phantoms or whites and wraiths and stuff like that. Like those are possibilities, but it's like the Black Numenorians and the Barrow Whites. They're going to think that the Barrow Whites are actually white people, and I think the Black Numenorians are actual black people. Like it's just,
yeah.
You can't win because a word sounds the same as another word, just the dumbest thing in the planet. But needless to say, I'm more excited about these guys than I am probably anything else in this series, just because I like seeing whites and, well, Barrow Whites, wraiths. Like, I like that kind of stuff. That's my jam. I'm a little disappointed we don't get to see no werewolves or anything, but I do like the werewolf necromancy kind of mix, and Witch King of Angmar being a specialist in some of those areas is one of the things I like about him.
He deceived me.
And Celebrimbor looking confused as always. And he deceived me. You made him. There's the furnace.
So
why is
Anatar
Anatar coming out of the furnace? He wanted to have a day in the sauna, apparently.
He's Sauron.
He's Sauron. Oh no. This guy looks freaking weird and creepy when he first gets revealed.
What am I to call you?
That doesn't look like Charlie Vickers. It is Charlie Vickers, but whatever they did, they like sunk in his eyes a little bit.
Anatarakanda.
His eyes look too close together. It's
He's supposed to look beautiful.
He does
Remember
not look
that.
beautiful. He looks like a beautiful mess. And not the kind you call your girlfriend, because that actually is supposed to be attractive. This
Anatar is supposed to assume a fair and pleasing form that on its own was capable of generating like a charismatic reaction to him.
ain't what I'm getting out of this.
A sharer of gifts.
And there's an argument saying that the reason they call him a sharer of gifts is because they can't say Lord of the Gifts or whatever. Like they can't say Anatar because they might not have the rights to that particular name or something. But it's like, yeah, this dude just came out of my freaking furnace.
I would explain this. So after when the Tolkien rights got settled a couple years ago, there were 2 or 3 ongoing lawsuits, and there were like people competing for like. So the Saul Zan, whatever his name is, Saul, whatever. He had the control of all the rights for The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit for all visual medium except for the appendices, right? And all the other rights to Lord of the Rings, to the Legendarium, Christopher had never shared out there, right? So, so the Tolkien estate and Time Warner and someone else were involved in multiple lawsuits over rights and profits and stuff like that. So, and also the Time Warner rights were expiring to revert back to Saul Zaentz to sell them out again, which was Amazon wanted to buy. Embracer Group comes in, buys those rights, settles the lawsuits, and says to the Tolkien estate, because Christopher's dead, we want to license the whole Legendarium, basically. And they did that, and then after they did that, no, they have all of it now. Embracer has all of it.
They have Silmarillion too?
Yeah, they have Silmarillion, yeah.
I wasn't aware the Silmarillion would even.
Yeah, Embracer can do TV to movie shows and video games based on anything in the Legendary.
I mean, the Silmarillion would be an amazing, would hands down be a bestseller as a TV show.
Well, I'm getting there.
If they did it right, they're not gonna. But
after they did that, right? Embracer went and Amazon talked and said we'll give you more rights to Second Age stuff, basically. So that's their rights to. Our understanding is from Second Age stuff from Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales, basically. And then the rumor dropped, like it's a confirmed rumor, except it hasn't been confirmed by MGM or Time Warner or wherever, that Peter Jackson is now adapting the Silmarillion. So,
I would love it if he did, but I'm also terrified because of what's her face, Philippa Boyens. She'd probably be part of that, and I'm terrified of her touching anything. And I don't want Peter Jackson to be poisoned by Philippa Boyens. And I don't know if Fran Walsh is also in on this whole thing because
it's his group. Peter Jackson has a group that he makes movies with. So
I know, but the thing is that Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens are the ones he made Lord of the Rings with, and they're probably going to be in that group. But they also don't have good ideas when it comes to honoring Tolkien. That's what I'm terrified.
Well, I don't think. Let me put it this way. I like the Lord of the Rings, the theatrical version, but they are not very good adaptations. So,
I like it, but yeah.
No, they're good movies. They're just not good adaptations. I don't want to turn this into let's pick apart the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movie, because I could do that for hours. I've done that before.
It's okay. You can be wrong.
I'm most certainly not wrong. It starts with the piranha-like army of the undead, but
Well, I'm not saying that everything they did in it is lore accurate. Like there are obvious problems to it.
They murdered Denethor's character. They murdered Elrond's character.
Yeah, they nuked a lot of people, and there's the elves at Helm's Deep. There's the Army of the Dead being physical. There's a whole bunch of issues. We get that, but they changed it for a lot of reasons. I wish they didn't. I wish they kept it the normal way. But out of any adaptation of anything ever made before, it is the best adaptation, and it was well put together. And it was
there are better adaptations, like Shogun. Both versions are better, for example.
I did not find them to be terribly, like, they're good. They're just, they didn't keep my attention like I was hoping they would. Like I watched Shogun and I was like, oh man,
leaving aside the quality of the product, I'm talking about the scale of 0 to 10, where 0 means like prime and 10 means great adaptation of all time. There are things better than Lord of the Rings movies, like the Andromeda Strain, Hunt for Red October.
But we're also not going to put those, like the Hunt for Red October as a book is not going to be on the same tier level as Lord of the Rings.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking just on how accurate an adaptation is. Salem's Lot.
Yeah, but if I go out and I make a 30-second recording and of an actual real event, you'd be like, "Oh, that's the greatest thing of all time because it was 30 seconds, it was 100% accurate, blah blah blah." But it's like, but you're not comparable.
You're trying to defend the Lord of the Rings films on the wrong point. They're really good movies, great movies. It's the greatest movie trilogy of all time for sure. But when you talk to diehard fans of it, people who are like care about certain core details, you're not the same way you are about Wheel of Time, for example. About Wheel of Time versus Wheel of Prime. I am about Tolkien's Legendarium and adaptations. So.
Well, yeah, but like I didn't know Wheel of Time longer. I grew up on Lord of the Rings. Now, granted, I don't keep as up to date and refresh my memory as often about Lord of the Rings as I do Wheel of Time, which is why I could kind of jump into things by memory through Wheel of Time a lot quicker. I'm obviously not like on Dane's level or a bunch of other people's level, but I also don't think you need to know everything off the top of your head in order to be.
I'm not saying the knowledge. I'm saying you are much more bothered by changes from Wheel of Prime than you are with. You can. Everyone will say that about you. Everyone.
I will argue that Lord of the Rings, Tolkien in its entirety, like the Legendarium and everything, that bothers me a lot. Now, I am more modernly connected to Wheel of Time than I am Lord of the Rings, mostly because we haven't had much Lord of the Rings come out besides basically when the trilogy came out. That was about it. The Hobbit was kind of a disappointment to pretty much everyone, but there's not been a whole lot. Like, I grew up on Lord of the Rings games, and for the most part, they're good games. There are obviously some that are better than others and stuff, but I enjoy Wheel of Time. But the Wheel of Prime was more just as a bastardization and abomination in its entirety. Like, it's just, that's the way it is. But I feel the same way about the Rings of Power. It's a bastardization and an abomination. I wouldn't say one's better than the other in terms of like which one I enjoy of the two. I would say Lord of the Rings. Look behind me, dude. I have more Lord of the Rings stuff than I have Wheel of Time stuff. And I have a lot of Wheel of Time.
You're not a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you are more committed to how horrible an adaptation of something is of Wheel of Time than of Lord, because you can't objectively look at Peter Jackson's movies and call them more than a 5 out of 10 on an adaptation scale. You just can't. He omitted the entire War of the Ring.
Well, the entirety of the War of the Ring? Which War of the Ring are you referring to?
The War of the Ring that was going on while they were trying to sneak through enemy lines to destroy the one.
Well, he didn't cover the North, no. Which I was a pity. I wish he did.
What did the army of the undead actually do in the book?
Frighten.
No. They went to okay, so there are two armies in Gondor, right? There's the Northern Army that Boromir and Faramir commanded, which have been fighting the bulk of the war, right? Yeah. And there was a huge breakout there. I'm not going to go into details, right? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. The army of Southern Gondor was defending the south from the sea, the Black Númenóreans and all that, right? Sauron had a ploy where he besieged all of Southern Gondor from sea, trapping the army of Southern Gondor there so they could not reinforce Northern Gondor. Aragorn led the army of the undead plus the company from Rivendell to southern Gondor, and the army helped him free up all the army of southern Gondor, and that's who he took north to the battle.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is what the Army of the Dead did was frighten. They were there to frighten because they couldn't physically touch anything, but they frightened the Corsairs.
But the point is that the war should not have been a piranha-like army that showing up and magically Pac-Manning the enemy.
I agree. I
should have depicted Aragorn.
Here's the thing: he already had a bunch of executives being like, really, like, should we though? And then one of them's like, well, what? He's like, I'll do it in 2 movies. There's no way you're getting a very accurate adaptation for all 3 of the books in 2 movies. Just not gonna happen. They'd be like 12-hour movies easily to get even a smidgen.
Thank you very much. You just made my point.
But what I'm saying is for a movie to compare it to volume that is being adapted, it's by far the most accurate in terms of. You said the Battle of the Pulse minus the Army of the Dead is not accurate.
Book to movies that are more accurate than that by far, and I could go on.
But I said percentage. So, like, The Hunt of Red October is what, an hour and a half movie, 2 hours?
They just cut out a chunk of it. Otherwise, it's fairly accurate adaptation.
Well, yeah, but I'm not talking about its adaptation. I'm saying the length of it, what has to all be added and crushed into it to a reasonable movie length, to which that an executive would okay. Then you look at something like Lord of the Rings, which is a much more vast wealth of knowledge, and a lot more is going on than The Hunt of Red October, hands down. Like, no one can deny that.
And they made a really, really, really good movie trilogy. A lot of movies.
But there were a lot of things.
0 to 10 applications. There were 5 or 6s.
There was a lot of things that the story itself could not really affect the accuracy of it because they had limitations put on them by external forces.
There was no story.
October not nearly as going to be.
There was no reason to make Elrond an asshole. There was no reason to make to destroy the character of Denethor. There was no productive reason for it.
The reason they do that is for drama.
There's plenty of drama the other way.
I know, but like the drama between Arwen and Aragorn, and the drama between this thing that
there was drama between them. Okay, so
but not like enough. And theatrical, there really was.
Arwen wanted to marry before Aragorn left for war. Okay, Elrond and Aragorn were like, no. First, elves don't get married when war is going on. Second, you need to keep. That's literally a tradition of the elves. Secondly, we need to keep open the option if Sauron wins. Aragorn and Elrond agreed that so you could escape to Valinor. That's why they didn't get married.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm talking drama between like.
There was no stupid living of her immortal life in that and the even side. That's nonsense.
I know, but you're not understanding the difference between when you have a series or you have a movie. Like if The Hunt of Red October had a whole bunch of stuff and it was like going to be a 4-hour movie, and the executives come in and say, "No, you don't get 4 hours. You get an hour and a half."
They could have saved time and cut out the scenes of the unnecessary Arwen parts and just saved the money entirely.
But even if they cut out the Arwen scenes, it's not going to make everything else better.
It would, because the deviances from the book will be gone.
They wanted to add Arwen to give Arwen a bigger role, which is fine. I'd rather see Glorfindel personally, but Glorfindel didn't play that much of a role, sadly, in the actual books, which is really depressing because I wanted to see him. But when you have a comparison, I'm not saying that like they did a perfect 1-to-1 because they clearly didn't.
That's not what I'm saying either. I'm saying on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is the most perfect adaptation possible, and 0 means it's not, the opposite of that. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is somewhere between a 5 and a 6, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's as close as you can get to it in the movie.
I'm not sure what moves it up or down. That's the problem.
Well, to move it up or down, you'd have to have a TV show.
Well, that would definitely help. Personally, I'm sick of movies. I'd rather just everything be a TV show. Personally, and a well-produced, obviously, like the quality of armor, the quality of all the props,
and there are some details, like I said, the stuff with Arwen, the army of the piranha, like army of the undead. There are things you could have changed. You could have just shown him show up at the southern Gondor, and then going north with the actual army of Southern Gondor. That's all you had. That
Yeah,
one
but-
change would have made that so much better.
You'd have to add another 3 movies to make everything fit to where a good adaptation would be even possible.
But again, we are in agreement on that. But
Yeah.
the point I'm making is there are changes he made that he did not have to make for that movie that made it a worse adaptation. If you just and you don't have to.
Well, yeah, I'm saying it's a worse adaptation because it didn't have Tom Bombadil. Personally, that's my viewpoint. It's worse because it doesn't have Tom Bombadil. But people would argue it's not necessary. It needed to be cut so they could make.
I'm
room
not
for
making
more.
that argument. I'm
I'm
saying
not
that there are
saying you're-
things he changed that he did not have to change.
Yes and
That
no.
would have affected the movie. If anything, the movie would have been shorter had he not made those changes. Really, all the stupid stuff with Arwen and showing her laying around writhing and all that not needed. Well,
That's mere minutes, dude. That's not even like a long enough time to make an argument because none of those minutes taken away, put anywhere else, would have changed the overall outcome to make it either better as an adaptation.
yeah, it would have taken a non-existent from the book scene out of the movie and made it more accurate.
Yeah, but they're also trying to build up the romance between Arwen and Aragorn.
Well, you know what you do that? Have that awesome scene in the book where they sing together. That'd be a nice thing to have.
But it also doesn't move the plot.
Yeah, it does. It establishes that they love each other.
Well, yeah, but they did that with this.
And then move around the scene where she brings him his banner and all that. Have that scene, which is really after in the epilogues. Have that happen.
We were going for the musical for this one either, so that probably would have been.
Have Arwen lead the group from Rivendell to Minas Tirith with his banner and with the surviving Arnorian families and all that. That's a good scene for her. It would have been good.
That's a lot of scene that wouldn't have any, like, that doesn't move the ring closer to Mordor, that doesn't stop the armies that are attacking, that doesn't build up in between. Like, I get what you're saying, and I totally agree. Like, I'd love
we're not talking about making the movie. We're talking about making a more accurate adaptation.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that, okay, Jackson had a limited amount of time. He was going to make it 2 movies. They said, make it 3 movies. So he had 3 movies to do all this stuff in one. It's better as a TV.
You keep trying to avoid what I'm saying, which is he made very good to great movies, but they were at best 5 or 6 on scale of being good adaptations at best.
But I'm not saying adaptations as in he could have made more accurate in terms of like having more.
I certainly am saying that.
I'm saying within a 3 movie limitation in which he has to bring in not only the original Lord of the Rings fans, but also the rest of the
you're looking for a qualifier I'm not talking about. I don't care about. I honestly don't care about non-Lord of the Rings fans. To be honest, I don't care about them.
Well, I don't particularly care about them either. I'd prefer just have what I want, but I'm also a realist and pragmatic.
On the objective standard of was it a great adaptation or was it a poor adaptation? It was somewhere in the middle, which is a 5 or 6.
For what he had to work with.
You're qualifying. I'm not no qualifiers. No qualifiers.
Well, in that case, I don't see anything as a good. There is no such thing as a good. Every
I
adaptation.
Name a whole bunch of them. The Andromeda Strain, the original one, not the stupid remake. The Hunt for October, Salem's Lot, the original, not either of the stupid remakes.
These all sound like simple stories with simple everything, so of course they could be made.
Both Shoguns. The second was more like a 7 on the adaptation scale. The first one was more like a 9.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you take an adaptation and you're doing it 1 for 1, you're getting a 10. If you start pulling anything off, you're pulling off whole numbers for me. So if you're doing 2 scenes, it's now an 8. If you're doing 3 scenes, it's now a 7. If you're doing 4 scenes different, it's drop. Like, you're dropping off hard because if we're going for adaptation for the sake of adaptation, you're either a simple story, which has no particular draw to me personally, where, okay, you have dudes on a submarine. Okay, and what? And then they do this thing, they're hiding this, they're hunting down this, all these things are going on, but it's like, that's a very simple story. You just have to take a shot of a submarine underwater and then have a couple guys do drama for 5 minutes and then bam.
Have you ever read the book?
I did a long time ago.
There's way more in The Hunt for October than dudes on a submarine.
But I'm saying for the movie comparison, like what they did in the movie compared to what's in the book.
In the movie, they had the other stuff in there. It's the stuff on the submarine they cut.
Okay, so they cut stuff, which means it's not a great adaptation. That's my point.
It's about a 9, 8 or 9.
Not if they're cutting stuff.
They cut the entire part in the Delaware River.
So they cut an entire plot line.
No, it's not a plot line. It's just a longer battle.
Okay, well, yeah, but this plot.
The battle between the submarines at the end was longer in the book because they went up the Delaware River and had some sort of shenanigans up there. That to keep it simple. So they just cut that whole chunk out of it.
They made changes, which means it's not a good adaptation. If we're playing off the whole,
it's somewhere between a 7 and a 9. It's still more accurate than Peter Jackson's movies were.
If I'm going off of pure adaptation, I'm going to be much more extreme than you are. I'm going to be much more like it's like a 2.
Fine, then by that scale you're using, Peter Jackson films were a 2.
But I didn't base that scale off of the Peter Jackson films because I'm actually applying qualifiers because I realized there are limitations in film.
Again,
if it was a TV show, I think he could have gone accurate if that was the way he wanted to go.
Again, the whole issue with qualifiers would be a different thing than say a pure a range saying whether something's a good adaptation or a that scale. That's a whole other thing, because you do have to make sacrifice. Like but what did they just Yu Hakusho, right? It's actually do you know what that is?
Yes.
Okay, so they did that 5-episode TV adaptation.
Live, or are you talking the anime?
I'm talking the live action, right? So the live action, it was actually pretty good. And in terms of for what they were working with, this is where you talk about what they were working with, right? On the scale of 0 to 10, in terms of like not for what they're working with, just pure adaptation, it's like a 2, right? But on the scale for what they're working with, it's like a 7 or an 8 because it conveyed the story of the Dark Tournament and stuff going on.
Well, one could argue the same thing with One Piece. One Piece is definitely not a 1-to-1 adaptation by any means. But it was entertaining, it was fun, and it seemed to cling at least slightly close to it. But they had a lot of stuff that
on the other scale where you take into consideration what he had to work with, he was very faithful to the spirit of the books. So on that scale, he's higher. But in terms of the pure adaptation, no considering what he had to do, just on what he produced versus what was in the book, which is the one I always like to go for anything first, it's like a 5 or a 6 because there are changes he made that to me, there are reasons I don't watch the extended editions, and because those changes become worse in all the extended editions.
I would watch it, I wouldn't watch it. I would describe it as changes he was forced to make, not that he willingly made. Because there's a lot of stuff he didn't want to cut, and there's a lot of stuff he wanted to keep in, and there's allegedly like a 20-hour rendition of the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah, but see, to me, the changes from the book become worse with the extended editions.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that if you have more time, you can do more faithful things to the story. You have less time, it's going to be less likely to be accurate in terms of the 1-to-1 ratio or whatever, which I believe can be done. It's just it's never been tried, so nobody ever everyone's like, oh, it's not possible.
I don't think if you told Peter Jackson, if you gave him you can do a 10-year TV show with 20 episodes per season for Lord of the Rings, I don't think he would produce a greatly accurate to the books thing.
If you came to him and said, hey, I specifically want you to make an accurate show, I think he could do it.
If you had told him it had to be very 90% book accurate or something
but I'm not a Hollywood executive that's going to be breathing down his neck every millisecond. Now, obviously, after the Lord of the Rings trilogy's success, they were basically willing to give him whatever he wants because they want that monies, and they would get that monies from that kind of stuff. But you also don't get monies off of TV shows like you would off of a movie. Like a movie theater is going to make more money in that regard because this is also prior to major.
Like I said, I appreciate the work he did for the movies. I enjoy the theatrical version. I watch them periodically. I just wish we would get something from someone who wants to do a book accurate adaptation. I just really wish we would.
I would love. I mean, if he went through and either remade the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, and the Silmarillion. Unfinished Tales would be a little bit difficult because poetry and stuff. But if he went through and kind of did all these stories, did the Silmarillion stories, and he could do them in short stories, seasons or something, where he does the first age and a couple different seasons.
Well, I think
each of the different
they're envisioning a bunch of Silmarillion movies, 5 or 6 of them.
That movies is the wrong way to go. Silmarillion is too big.
You could do the Fall of Gondolin as a movie, and you could do a Baron movie. It
would be a 4+ hour movie, hands down. That's why we did one, because there's so much content, but they shorten it because the way it's written in like the Fall of Gondolin book or in the Silmarillion, they shorten all of it to kind of fit it in there as like, here's the general brief overview of it. Like it's a historian's overview of something. It's like if a historian goes over the Fall of
because
Rome,
obviously
it's a couple
Tolkien
paragraphs.
never finished the Silmarillion, and Christopher just edited together.
Yes, but what I'm saying is like if a historian goes about the Fall of Rome, it's a couple paragraphs, maybe a chapter.
Yeah.
It's not detailed like, and the barbarians came through this particular gate. There was
what I'm getting at
there
with
was
the Fall of
backstab,
Gondolin and
supplies
Baron
ran
Luthien,
through, and there's a plague being entered into the city. Like they're not adding all the details that you have to add into it, but still, because the more basic you are about your details for like the book or whatever, like if the Fall of Gondolin's like, oh, here's what happened, you can easily hit all those points, and you're just gonna have a very short movie. It's just not gonna be that long. Or you
Fall of
fill
Gondolin
in.
is basically like a half an hour of lead into a siege invasion war movie. That's all. That's what you would do. And then
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like it would not be either not long at all, or it'd be extremely long. There would be no in between.
that'd be like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I guess I prefer TV shows, but I can see, like I said, I could see those two events as movies if you focus specifically on the fall of the city and everything relating to it, and if you focus specifically on Baron showing up and saying, "I want Luthien's hand in marriage," and he gives him the quest to go to Silmaril because he thinks he's going to die. That whole chunk of it,
Yeah, but if you're going to do an adaptation and you have the option between a movie or a TV show, you should always go the TV show route, unless it's like a short story.
Oh, I agree. I 100% agree. I'm just saying,
if you're going to do it, do it
as
right.
you say, he's under the demands of executives who are funding this, and they may say, "Look, we need 5 movies out of this." So
if Amazon's putting $1 billion in for 5 seasons, they could easily put something out like that, considering how much money they put into it, knowing that a very well-made series by a well-respected director, I almost said author, well-respected director, and a good writing team. I know he sold Weta Workshops, which is sad, but if he had another Weta Workshops kind of series or company to make props and stuff, and he did it well, they'd make so much money it would put Harry Potter out.
We know that, but we're not these executives. So
I know, but that's my point, is that the limitations the executives put on you is going to be an entirely different ball game comparative to being like, just make a good adaptation.
Sure, all of these executives have been running these companies into the ground for the past 25 years. And these are the ones funding this. So
yes, but that's my point. It's easy to do a 1-book, 1-movie adaptation like The Hunt for October comparative to a 3-part massive amount of stuff happening in it, grand legendary level tier fantasy series.
And again,
you literally get either a CGI.
We're in agreement on what should happen, but Time Warner is mostly a movie company, and they're going to want movies from him.
They need to adapt. Movies are going out, TV shows are going in. If they don't,
why would they care? They get paid $3 million a year, and without no matter what, so they don't care.
Well, if that's the case, then they should go TV. If they don't care, like it doesn't matter.
Again, I'm just saying,
if they were doing like another movie for like The Hobbit, yeah, you could do a movie because you don't need 3 movies for that technically. I would always prefer to have more content to less content.
Well, funny enough,
I want it to be accurate.
Like The Hobbit could really be done in 1 book if you fast forward to certain parts of it.
The Hobbit is a 1 book.
I mean 1 movie, 1 2.5 hour movie. Well, like I get what they did. I get
if you properly screen hopped between instances, like the traveling between like the Shire, the Trolls, and then the Trolls.
Well, one of the good things Jackson did in Lord of the Rings, right, in the Fellowship was, even though I disagree from the adaptation point of view, from the movie entertainment point of view, the way he sped up them traveling, that you could do in The Hobbit, right?
Well, I maybe you might have to do it into 2 movies, and the reason I say this is because dialogue in a book is read at a different rate.
Well, if I were a billionaire funding it, I would tell Peter Jackson. First, I would have. The reason he wasn't involved was because he was suing Time Warner, and even after his lawsuit concluded, the Dick executive barred him from involvement with The Hobbit, and then he didn't get involved with The Hobbit until that guy got fired. So that's the reason he wasn't involved with The Hobbit from the begin with. Okay, but let's say I'm the billionaire, right? I'm the one saying, Peter Jackson, I got a lot of money for you. I want to make a Hobbit adaptation.
Bar a guy who made the best trilogy in the history of mankind, and it's just like, I'm gonna bar you because pettiness.
Well, they're all dicks. I would say to him, break the Hobbit into two. The first part is about Smaug. The second part is about the Battle of Five Armies. Very simple adaptation. Very simple breakup. So you have the journey that gets you this confrontation with Smaug, and then you have the dwarves settling in with the politics and the Battle of Five Armies.
A 4-hour movie, I would say the first one could be Smaug, and then the second one could be the Battle of the Five Armies. But if you're doing like a 2.5 movie, you wouldn't be able to do that.
I'm saying you could do it as a 2.5-hour movie, but if I were funding it, I'd say it's 2 movies like that.
But what I'm saying is like, because you could arguably put The Hobbit, because it's one book, like 300 pages, and you put that into.
And what they did put in that movie that extended it was from the appendices, with the battle at Dol Guldur. I would have said if you really need a third movie, you're not making a Hobbit movie. Between them, put out a movie called The Quest for Eregion, which is from Unfinished Tales, culminating in the battle at Dol Guldur between the White Council and Sauron, and make it totally separate from the Hobbit, like totally.
Like a short film practically.
Well, no, Gandalf and Elrond will be the only characters in both. You know what I mean? And
what I'm saying is like the Hobbit, like when you're interacting in Rivendell with Thorin and Elrond and Gandalf and Bilbo and everything, the talking of dialogue is like, this is a strange thing. Pause, glance around, like things are happening. But when you're reading that, you're like, this is a strange thing. I wonder what. You just go to the next line. So like reading is obviously going to be a faster pace than it is going to.
Well, yeah, that's all the nuance of it. I'm not getting into.
Yeah, what I'm saying is like a dialogue heavy. Like The Hobbit's very dialogue heavy. That's what makes it great. Is because it skips the in betweens that you don't need to. And like same thing. The one thing that Lord of the Rings trilogy is renowned for is the ability to let you understand time skips. Because they see them walking across mountains, and like they jump from one to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other, different screenshots. It's in real life, it took probably days to make, but in the actual film, it's seconds. But it lets you know they walked all the way through forests, they walked over mountains, they're across peaks, they're going into valleys, they're going into all sorts of places, and you get that all in a short time period.
So let's get back to this, the last minute of this trailer, because we're running on 7 o'clock.
Yeah. 2 minutes, man. All
right. Our work begins now.
I want to. What's a shero of gifts? I think it's supposed to be sharer.
Anatara Kanda is slitting around the background now. Yeah.
A shero. We demand a shrubbery. And this, I think, is the east, if I recall correctly.
I have walked.
Conan the Barbarian. When Conan's friend, what was his name, was riding in with the sun behind him while he's rescuing Conan from the Tree of Woe.
Huh.
I remember this stuff out of the blue. It's like,
I'm trying to figure out who these masked people are, but I'm assuming they're prototypes for Nazgul, is my assumption. Probably not ones that make it. They don't end up becoming like the actual Nazgul.
They're Hazgul, you know.
They're what? They're has-been goals.
And deserts.
Because there's a couple of them that.
Oh my god! They're stealing from the cartoon now. Remember what they look like in the animation. Remember when they had that? They did look cool in the animation. That's the same. Oh my god!
You gotta steal your information when you can.
They're ripping off.
I don't understand what he's doing with that. Like, why is the ground shifting like that?
He's summoning a sandworm.
Shiloh. Yeah.
To help my friend find his destiny.
That hair, though. I don't know why that was ever considered popular in the 80s.
That's $10 million worth of hairspray on one person.
Like, yeah. I can't stand the Harfoots. Like, I agree with Shad. They are the most evil of people.
Oh, yeah. Everyone.
Won the fate of the world.
Now, the question is this one of the women? I'm assuming this is one of the women that were hunting down the stranger.
She's casting a genjutsu. Those are feathers.
Are those feathers? I thought they were moths. They're moths. Yeah. So here's more of these women that are Nazgulish witches or something.
To depend on.
Is it my
I love when he takes that little stick. Thump! Like it's supposed to be impressive looking. It's really not.
Shahaloo.
to stop the fire? Is it my task to face?
That scene with the sand is literally right out of Dune.
Yeah. And then he's got Tom Bombadil, who's not Tom Bombadil, and
Horrible.
oh
The
my
one
god.
character, by the way, we talked about this. For those listening, if you didn't watch the other video, this is one of the characters you could have legit had a non-white guy play. Based on his description in the book, his face is literally red as an apple. And you could
Well, the problem with descriptions in books like that is that, especially in like historical,
yeah. Okay, I'm exaggerating. Get that. You could have had an American Indian type looking guy play him and legit fit the physical description in the book. Okay.
I mean, the European background makes that a little weird and complicated, but it's possible, I suppose.
But I agree with you structurally. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I try to look
one
at
character in the whole book who's physically described as not white, and you make a white guy play him. Who's the real racist?
Well, yeah. Well, we knew they were racist. They're born racist, but they just don't make him jovial. They don't make him happy. They don't make him gay in the true sense of the word. Not the modern rendition of it, but he doesn't have his colorfulness. He should be like colorful like a tinker.
Yeah.
And
his home is supposed to be ultra pleasant to be in, make you feel good.
Well, he's apparently living in the sand desert because reasons. That's a place Goldberry would definitely want to live. And then obviously the Palantir turning into a holographic platform from Star Wars.
Which have nothing. This character never touched a Palantir in the novels, in the books. Never.
Yeah, well, they're not following the novels, as we know.
To try and cheat death?
But this is like how he connects with Sauron and wants to gain power. So he tries to control Numenor. Then we're going to get the fall of Numenor to that and a whole bunch of other things.
Might lead to...
Oh, look, check your member berries. You remember this guy? Oh, I love Balrogs. This just makes me upset.
An even greater catastrophe. Father, take off the ring.
I like he's a dwarf who just one hand smack his son across the room. It's like, I don't think you have that kind of strength. Just throwing that out there. You don't have that kind of strength.
Well, you could say the ring enhanced him because the 9 and the 7 were more warlike of use, so to speak. So you could have said they did make them physically. You could argue that.
But warlike doesn't necessarily mean you personally become warlike. It could mean you have a warlike control, like morale or a frenzy type effect on your soldiers or something like that. It doesn't necessarily mean you become the Hulk.
No, they were. The indications was that they were more. The 7 and 9 were more physically enhancing of them. Because remember, the one of the purposes of using objects like the rings or other objects is you're trying to give powers of the unseen world to people who can't use them, like men and dwarves have no access to that.
Like Terangria, yes.
Yeah. So I had no problem with that part of it. I do have a problem with the fact that, well, how do they know putting the ring on is bad? Wearing a ring is not bad as long as someone doesn't have the one ring.
Well, it's probably something of more of the art of deduction where Durin the Fourth is like, oh, my dad's like this. And then he put a ring on, and now he's like this. It's probably the ring. Or I would assume Elrond talked to him about the ring. Is my guess.
But how would Elrond even know until the one ring is forged?
No. We're talking about who, because remember, Elrond knows what went on with the 3 Elvish rings. And presumably at that point...
Well, okay, no. Well, that's the plot of the book, right? The plot of the show, rather. What I'm saying is the deviation from the lore is what makes wearing the ring bad is that Sauron could use the one ring to control you. If he doesn't have the one ring, yes, the rings are make you a little power hungry.
Yeah, I think it's him being like Durin being like, I just noticed that this ring comes to my father, and now he's behaving more.
But that's a show thing.
But I'm saying how they portray it.
Yeah, I'm talking
how they end up
from the lore is what I'm going on here with, where they should be depicting it as the ring would maybe make him a little more greedy, but there's no real problem because he's going to be greedy because he's a dwarf. But there's no real problem with it because Sauron can't control him because they're in the One Ring yet. That's where they should be depicting it. What they are doing is they're saying that Sauron's corrupting them with the rings, and that's a total opposite of what the
whole
lore
show is the total opposite.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue about with them, but like, yeah, what you're not making the show accurate. This didn't happen in the books. I'm going to be arguing the whole concept you have put together is stupid. On top of that, but I like that we're more than halfway through this, right? And we still haven't even touched the eastern side where the elves are really fighting Adar, kind of thing. Like that whole area has been kind of just ignored.
Well, those are the black elves. So they don't matter.
I mean, Khazad-dûm falling apart. I would assume because of the Balrog, but
I'm afraid
that happened.
She's like, I'm afraid, Doran. They're out of the steaks at the bakery, in the butcher shop, and all the food's gone. It's gone stale.
Every soul in Middle Earth is in peril.
I should go drown myself because why not? But then you can't even at this point. Every soul in Middle Earth is imp. But like you can't even tell if it's a dream because Tar-Mariel has had dreams like of Numenor being sunk or whatever, and like now is this supposed to be what turned into Mordor? Is this supposed to be something? Oh no, that's Tom Bombadil and the Stranger. So this is like Easterling territory,
and their whole storyline gets like, I mean, I don't want to defend like okay. So if they didn't have any of the Numenorian stuff in this, if it were just the elves and Haldor and all that, I'm not saying it would be great, but they would have less writing problems, like trying to squeeze so much garbage into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'd be less. Well, I mean, it'd still be annoying, but it would be less annoying.
Well, the writing will be less annoying. The deviances would still be annoying, but the writing will be less annoying.
Yeah. Well, even the deviances would be annoying, but they would be less annoying because there's less deviances because there's less content in them.
Yeah.
Will you abandon them to their doom?
Would you abandon them to their doom? I'm trying to figure out what accent he's spoken. Is that supposed to be a Welsh?
Look, it's Leatherface. He's about to kill someone.
Leatherface. Yeah.
You know the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Huh?
You've seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right?
I've not seen it, no, but I know the reference.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I horror films put me to sleep. They're boring as all get out. Yeah, more of Khazad-dûm collapsing.
No, what are you doing? That's where the Ark is. The Ark of the Covenant has been found.
The Holy Grail. What have you done to me? Well, I turned you on by coming out of a furnace. So see, like that looks more believable than the original that he had his introduction in. His introduction was really creepy. Like a wax face melting.
He still doesn't look fair and pleasing.
He doesn't, but he looks better here than he did in the prior shot.
Well, I guess he looks fair because he's white, but he doesn't look pleasing. He's handsome.
I don't know. He looks like a swindler to me.
Sauron.
Yeah, and Adar, leave Sauron to me. And then like, why is the crown upside down?
It looks like a crown of thorns, don't it?
Yes, but the crown was meant to be up, not down.
No, they're going for religious symbology here.
Possibly, but I'm trying to figure out who he's doing it. Oh, he stabs him with it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's going to like, I'm going to put this on your head, flips it upside down, and okay, that makes more sense. Oh, look, a Boromir. Remember berries? Remember Boromir?
Boromir.
How much you want to bet that's like a Isildur or something?
Oh my God, Boromir! That's a pro wrestling thing.
Promise me, Elrond. You will not.
I'm thinking those are orcs.
Stop until he is destroyed.
Why is it all of a sudden Elrond's problem? She's like, I know I caused all this, and I was hunting him, but can you finish the job for me?
Forgive me.
Not even the right color hat. What, like, all he does is give advice to the stranger. That's literally all he does, and he doesn't do anything. And his advice
Why would
is
you pose with a bow like that?
he's probably in the process of pulling it up and then notices something.
Takes an age.
Ant weaves. Remember thems? No, because they weren't in the Lord of the Rings. They were mentioned though. I've seen better animatronics at Disney. Just saying.
I need your axe, old friend.
Give me the meat and give it to me raw.
Those special new Marines, 500 horses each on them.
300. Get it right. Hey, he's still alive.
Fight with me.
Why is the king there?
Why is she fighting? Dwarven women were rare. They were not deliberately held away from combat.
No, they were deliberately held away.
Yeah, they were deliberately held away from combat. Yeah.
You said they were not deliberately held away. I was like, no, they were.
Well, see, they might be deliberately sending this one into combat, you know.
This right here is probably the Balrog. It's my assumption because Durin the Third's right there next to her.
So this is where they die. If that's the Balrog. There's nothing they can do to fight a Balrog. Nothing.
Well, they're probably thinking about like doing a rockfall trap to trap him in a corner or something where he's buried for another 1,000 years or something. It's probably where they're going with it.
The same Balrog that blasted through a wall of.
Yes, but if you drop enough, he's not going to be able to do anything about it. You can only blast things away if there's somewhere for it to go on the other side. Otherwise, you're just punching it and it crunches down. And I don't think the Balrog's a very good digger. But if you do manage to trap him with a rock fall that like buries.
Well, the thing is, in the book,
there's
the Balrog wasn't trapped.
There's no way that you, as a dwarvish people, would forget that there's Durin's Bane just on the other side of this mountain rock. There's no way. Which is what they delve. Remember, excuse me, wow, where did that come from? Where Gandalf.
They delved too deep, yeah.
They delved too deep and too greedily. Or no, that was Sauron.
But the Balrog wasn't buried. That's a misconception people get. The Balrog was hiding and just chilling underground, basically. And they dug deep enough and alerted them to its presence. That's what happened in the story. Okay? Like the Balrog could have come up sooner, but he didn't, you know.
Well, that's the thing, is like they dealt too greedily or whatever. But if what I'm assuming they do, which is bury the Balrog, if they do that, there's no way by the time you get to Lord of the Rings, they're like, oh, we just forgotten Moria, and then bam, it came back. Like, no, you should have had like so many precautions put in place. Like 1-800 Glorfindel being on your phone at all times. Like, come on.
If you read The Quest for Eregion in Unfinished Tales, right, there's a sort of, based on what is written in there, that the entire Hobbit was a hit job by Gandalf to take out Smaug, and that the real reason Gandalf wanted to go to Moria wasn't just to avoid it; it was because he wanted to take out the Balrog, so Sauron couldn't use them in his war.
Possible. I mean, the elves have been known to kill Balrog, so I wouldn't worry too much about
Very
it.
Very few of them are that level of power.
Yeah, but if you have a few of them that are not at that power level but are together that power level, it helps. Remember the spiders? So Isildur survives being burned alive in a building. We already knew that was going to happen. And somehow ends up in a area with a dead body. Not sure if it's a human or an orc. And, you know, his clothes aren't torn or anything. He's still looking like he's pretty freshly dry cleaned and stuff. And somehow ends up in a spider lair for some reason.
Fight with our friends!
And then the dwarves are like, rebellion! Or this is not the rebellion.
Freedom!
This ends up being fighting against the Balrog. I don't know.
When the darkness
Oh, look, she's a perfect... Yeah, that's not how you're supposed to shoot. You would never hit anything.
falls, there are always some.
And he just killed an elf?
The fourth kinslaying.
Huh?
The fourth kinslaying. The reason they killed the Black Elves was because of the fourth kinslaying.
Well, hold on. So this guy looks. He's not. It's not an orc. Maybe it's supposed to be like an human.
The real reason the Asian people hate black people is because the black elves killed the Asian elves.
But like, why would he be doing this?
There's so much nonsense in here that when they get to this scene, like there's no justification. Like they should have just focused on the war of Sauron and the elves, Celebrimbor, like that whole chunk of it, and that would have been 5 years. And even if it's compressed, that at least 300 years into 5 years, at least they could have made a coherent storyline out of it.
I can't even.
Rise forth.
Oh, that must just be regular bandits, I'm guessing.
And shine.
That's bullcrap.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's gonna be Manway coming to our Farzan saying, "Hey, you need to back off." And of course, he's not going to listen. Now, are they going to be arguing that somebody lays siege to Numenor? Or is that going to be Austin?
They laid siege to an island? Oh. Well, Sauron did kind of lay siege to Austin Hill.
Well, I'm saying Austin. I'm thinking that's Austin Hill. That's not Numenor, but it looks kind of like Numenor. Yeah, I wasn't sure. And then we've got that ring, which is a totally different ring. So I'm assuming that's one of the 9 or one of the 7. Probably one of the 9. No. That's Dur the Third's ring, isn't it?
I didn't catch which one he had on, but yeah, it could be.
It was a blue one of some sort.
You will give me the
Let's finish and we'll see.
That looks entirely different from the first time we see him. Yeah. For one, the wig was like.
So there's in the lore, there's a deviance with the 7 for the dwarves. That meaning there's two or three different versions of events. In one, Sauron got all 7 when he conquered Ostinedel and all that. In another, one of them had been sent to the dwarves, and Sauron got 6 of them when he went there. So they're probably pulling on where Durin got one of the rings.
Sure, but when you remember the first time we saw Anatar, his hair was like pulled back from the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like here and it went back, and there was like the little Elrond style. Look at his hair now.
Yeah,
it's a totally.
Well, it looks horrible in any form. So
it does, but this looks definitely better than the other form by far. That's a troll of some sort. That's a freaking huge troll, though. Holy crap! That must be a mountain giant.
Maybe
because troll. Look at the size of that thing compared to the humans. Look at all these useless, pointless spins. That helmet looks horrific. The way he says it doesn't feel elvish. It feels rigid.
Well, I bet they're going to do the same stupid thing where he's going to be speaking Sindarin when he should be speaking Quenya.
But not even that. Just like how he presents it, like how it comes off his tongue, does not seem like. Imagine Kate Blanchett and Arwen, or Liv Tyler's Arwen, when they mention things like when Arwen's talking to Aragorn and she's speaking it, she makes it flow so smoothly and softly.
Well, that's how Tolkien spoke it.
That's what I'm saying. It's like compare that to how he delivers it. He does not deliver it smoothly. He delivers it like blocky.
Yeah.
And that's it. It does not feel like Elvish. It just feels like he's speaking a random other language. That is definitely mostly CGI'd. But the armies look mad. Like the orcs definitely look better than the Nons. Although some of those you can tell are obvious giant masks. Why are there shields on their backs? Would you not need your shield on the front so you can hit people?
I guess it would. I mean, in this case, it's probably because the actor did do whatever they wanted. But in reality, I mean, if you're charging that way, you want your horse to run the enemy over or have them run away. So,
yeah, but the shield would be for you as you're stabbing that if somebody's on one side of you, you
Well,
could be attacking.
in
with
theory,
one
the
side.
point of this type of charge, since they're not setting pikes or anything, is to have your horses en masse run them over.
Yeah, but why do the orcs not have a single pike among them?
Well, in theory, okay, orcs are only capable of organized, functional one being controlled by a Maiar, essentially. So that's the lore-based reason why they wouldn't be organized into ranks and pikes and all that. Okay, in the show here, it's because
Well, I'm not even saying ranks. I'm just saying there's not a single spear. The spear is like the most basic one can use.
well, again, that's something that in the lore, Sauron or Saruman would have to mentally say use better weapons or whatever. You know,
But they have Adar, and Adar's like
he
the father.
he doesn't have. Well, again, that's the TV show nonsense. I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but
Well,
I'm
yeah,
saying we don't know what kind of mental aptitude that Adar has to which he could tell them do this or don't do that. That's what we don't know. So I'm figuring out, like, okay, even in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, they had some that had sticks or pikes or something.
But they were being organized by Sauron directly and the Witch King directly.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is like they at least carried one. It's not difficult to carry one, even if you don't line up.
In the lore, the orcs on their own basically act like cavemen. They have no concept of technology, nothing.
They don't know how weapons work. They don't know how to swing a sword.
They'll swing a sword like a club. They have no. They're extremely not intelligent.
Well, that is true.
They're designed to be mind controlled. They're literally designed to be mind controlled.
It sounds like the showrunners and producers of the show.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. You know what's depressing is that's in 28 days.
In the lore, that's part of the tragedy of the orcs is as they were corrupted perversions, mockeries of the elves are highly capable both as individuals and groups. The orcs are the complete opposite of that, you know. So and they're designed not only to be controlled, but to be a mockery of those who don't need that control. You know.
Yeah, I'm just depressed now.
Well, you can, go watch me on my other show talking about Them for 2 hours, one of the greatest science fiction movies of all time.
Which one?
It's called Them. It's
Them.
It's Them. It's like the first, like a giant monster, like a giant radioactive monster movie. It's a science fiction movie from the 50s.
Yeah, well, it's not that kind of depression. It's the kind of depression of seeing something that you love and care about being butchered, burned, tortured, destroyed, obliterated, massacred, eviscerated, raped.
I don't let it, I don't let it get to me anymore. Like when I watch it, it'll get to me, and I'll vent that in the like you try me to what being bitter about it while we're talking about it. But I'll move on from it mentally until next month when I have to start doing my 2 episodes per episode thing for it. So,
speaking of which, are you going to be having free time to do reviews if you would like to join or not? I don't know. You might be doing your own and stuff, but
I always do. And I'm probably be doing them the first one short. I always do for the first season. I did a episode where I viewed just the episode for its own sake, and then another episode of mine where I talked about the lore deviancies because I wanted to be objective about analyzing the show. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to just say, well, this sucks because it deviates from lore. This sucks from the lore. I want to say this sucks because the writing is bad. Or So I will probably wind up doing. I'm going to hopefully keep the lore video to maybe 15 minutes. Depends how much I find, because I go down a list with a notepad and say in the book it was this, in the book it was this. Then I parse that to see what I want to do in a video. Whereas the writing one, sometimes that's more in depth because you got to follow their stupid plot lines to their stupidity,
Well, yeah, I'm talking more just like, because I know you do typically do different streams on different channels and stuff like that. And I was
it's going to depend on the timing of things. Because I got real life stuff that's going to complicate stuff because I got to start actively looking for a new job now. See how that goes, and because I have 2 more months for sure left at this job, and then after that we see.
The contracted job.
Well, no, they're downsizing my position because the application I work on is being phased out. So either I'm trying to transition to another position in the company or outside the company, and that's what I'm actively starting. Like over now that I'm within 3 months of it, like they haven't told me exactly when my position gets finished. Like I'm on the budget to the rest of the year, but what I literally only need to work 15 hours a week at most to do my full-time job now, and they're still paying me a ridiculous amount of money. So I want to get that till the end, So I have that war chest, and then how I put it, so they could wind up keeping me on even past October 29th because they just forget about me for a month, and I'll gladly take that, So,
Well, if they have you till the end of the year, they might as well have you till the end of the year.
well, again, I do think that's up to them, though. I mean, I have no control over that. I've been told I will definitely be there until there's a go live date in October, and the end of that pay period would theoretically be the end of my time, unless they forget about me or extend me to the end of the year or whatever.
Well, I just wanted to see
As
if
far as like reviewing the show, so like Wednesday night I have my wrestling review, and then like obviously Thursdays we have this, and then my 8 to 10, and then periodically on Tuesdays I'm on Jacob's show depending on what his movie he's talking about or whatever. So, but usually Saturdays and Saturday night I'm gonna have something. I'll be playing D&D. So there's time on Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, I guess, if I want to be objective about it. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching these, unfortunately. Last time I almost didn't make it. But I was like, well, maybe if I watch it with some other people, it'll be a little bit easier on me. So I was going to try to get the crew together, but I think Arturian's going to still be busy doing stuff. Otis / Gadfly probably going to be busy as the normal schedule. Sage might be free. I would assume Sage will be free because he's out of school, but he might be doing job stuff as well. I don't know. And then you were kind of the wild card. So you and Sage are probably the more likely to.
I'll have to play it by ear because plus I have videos I want to record and stuff like that. Health.
Yeah.
I have to work around my health and other stuff. So see.
I fully understand it, dude. You don't gotta explain it. I was leaving it out there as an option that you could start thinking about now because we got like the rest of the month to figure it out.
Well, I'll keep it in my mind, and we get closer to it. We'll see how the timing works out. Because it might be the case that one of those other things gets canceled or something. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't want to do it anymore.
Or you found a new job that works out great and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I think any new job I get is going to be a job I actually have to work more than an hour a day at. So it's like.
Well, depending on how it's done and everything, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, true. But I'm getting paid the equivalent of like $92,000 a year to work like 10 hours a week right now.
I'd kill for that.
And the funny thing is, they raised my pay because I was getting like 60-ish up until about 3 months ago, maybe. And I'm only upset they didn't do this last year because they said they were going to do this last year. We're a big company, like we have like over 100,000 employees, right? So they reorganized all of our employees into like more unified job titles and rankings and all that, and I got reclassified into a tree that made me a application analyst rank 2, and that meant a mandatory $30,000 per year pay increase. Which, by the way, they said they're happy to pay me if I continue to like this because I'm valuable and everything. But so happily for the last 5 or 6 months of my employ, I'm getting this big raise. So I have a war chest, But unfortunately, I am losing my job, and I'd rather stay working for this company than change, So.
Well, see if you can work your way in. Hold on to it.
Yeah. Well, I just got to apply for other positions as they come available. The other option I would like to do is go work for GE because that's who issues the application that I'm a specialist in. So,
yeah. Well, hopefully you get that. But I'm not looking forward to the show. It's going to be sad. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be depressed because I'll never get an accurate one in my lifetime because they're going to butcher this so bad.
I think you're young enough that you might live long enough to see it. I don't think I will.
It's got to be 50 years out of its beginning or ending.
What are you like, 35?
Not quite there yet, but I'm getting there.
So you might live 50 more years. I doubt I am making more than 20 more years at most.
I don't want to be watching this when I'm 80 and then potentially being pissed off at whatever rendition it is when they remake it again. I want this to be sooner than same thing for Wheel of Time. If they make an accurate TV show of it, but they're going to look. The executives are going to be stupid. They're going to look at the all the little bits and numbers and everything that they use to make their positions or whatever, and then they're going to look at it and say, well, this clearly didn't work out very well. And it's like, well, do you know why it didn't work out? Well, because nobody likes it. It's like, no, you did it wrong. That's why nobody liked it, because it wasn't done well. And then if you do it well, it'll get people interested. It'll make people want to come and join the conversation of like, oh, what's this Wheel of Time thing? People will want to watch it. It's like, you just got to make it right. Just do it right. It's not that difficult. There's obviously a following. It's one of the best-selling fantasy series of all time. So I don't get it. Whatever. Anyway, we'll go ahead and call that for the night. So, Matt, I know you got your streams and whatnot, but this video is probably going to be coming out after that already happens. But if you want to go tell us anyway, go ahead. Knock yourself out.
You can find me on Roman the Empire show. If it's after the fact, which it will be, go find Roman's stream from the Thursday, which will be today, where we reviewed them, which were the greatest science fiction films of all time. I have my Friday stream, and then I have my content on my channel. That's simple enough.
Yeah, I've got my stuff here, which usually I have time for one video a week. But on occasion, if we don't do like a big long stream like this, I can put out a couple smaller videos depending on how much time. I don't have all the time in the world, sadly, as much as I would like to make videos basically all day, every day. But I'm trying to find some other stuff. I mean, once Sage gets back, we can continue our Tolkien ones. And then we'll go from there, I suppose. But obviously, the end of the month, we're going to be going Rings of Prime. It's going to suck.
It's prime time.
It's prime time for die time. That's what it is. Anyway, yeah, we'll go ahead and drop it there. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you around whenever, probably in the next video, just whatever it ends up being. Everything's happening on the weeks on a regular basis, so we'll find something when it happens. So thanks, everybody, for hanging out. And remember, my friends, walk in the light.